Hello, I'm Madeleine Savit. Welcome to Let's Get Political. Today I'm your host, and we will be talking about bicycling infrastructure in San Francisco and how it relates to the Vision Zero resolution. Joining us are our guests Mary Kay Chin and Devon who are Bicycle Advisory Committee members and representatives of Districts 1 and 6. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
In 2014, San Francisco signed on to the Vision Zero resolution. It happens that in the intervening years, we've been going backwards. We have more deaths and more serious injuries happening on the streets by non-drivers. The mayor has recently released an executive order recommitting to the Vision Zero goals. However, that was reactive after a couple of women were killed on the same evening in June. The community was very upset, and we'd like to know what your feelings are about how they responded.
Well, I found that the mayor's words were very nice words, but they are just words. And Vision Zero was adopted 2 years ago. I haven't really seen any changes since then. We've had approximately 3 bicyclists killed a year before and after Vision Zero, and many more pedestrians. So I'm really concerned that the mayor thinks that reiterating Vision Zero is the right response.
Yeah, I think that thoughts and prayers and resolutions that are merely repeating things that we've, as a government, as a city, as a community, have committed to already is troublesome. I can only imagine how difficult it is to actually get many of the infrastructure, the actual physical infrastructure changes that we need changed. Capital improvement projects, they require money, they require time. There's a lot of moving pieces, but at what cost? So far in 2016, we've had 20 people killed on our streets, 20 vulnerable road users, many of them seniors. And that's too much of a cost for us to be paying.
So in particular, what was the response from the bike community that you saw? We know that there was a memorial ride for the 2 women that was very, very well attended. Yeah. There was a lot of press coverage. And also there is a new organization that has sprung up of activists. You want to tell us a little bit about those actions and whether you think that serves the community to deal with these deaths?
Yeah, I think that the city itself as an entity in the government and the mayor's office was a little slow in responding, and it was only after a great deal of pressure from some of our city's advocacy organizations, including the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition, who motivated and agitated its members to write into the city and to make our voices be heard and say that we are the people at risk. We are the ones who are going to be paying the price of time and slow action. And there were about 1,500 emails that were written that the Bicycle Coalition saw, and that's not counting the ones that were written by non-members that were not CC'd by Walk SF, yep. Other vulnerable road user organizations, Walk SF, the Chinatown, seniors organizations, because seniors are a huge demographic of humans that are the most vulnerable and are shouldering a large burden of these injuries and deaths. And so to see kind of the more traditional advocacy and organizations and communities kind of speak up and push back is amazing. But for me, what was wonderful to see is this underground kind of guerrilla advocacy of the SFMTRa, which is the group who have been installing infrastructure in areas that are lacking it on behalf of bikers and pedestrians.
What does SFMTRA stand for?
The San Francisco Municipal Transformation Agency, which is pretty funny. And I know that there's a couple of different organizations similar to that, or little guerrilla groups in Portland and I think the East Coast somewhere.
New York,
and
yeah.
New York, yeah. Other areas where there is a lot of interface between vehicles, pedestrians, and bikers.
So did either of you attend the memorial ride? Can you tell us a little bit about the outpouring of feeling happening around that?
I did. I'm pretty sure I saw Mary Kay there.
Actually, I was at a San Francisco Bicycle
meeting.
Coalition board meeting and was not able to attend. So.
Yeah, Bike Party put together an impromptu memorial for the two women. Bike Party is a fairly organized group, considering that it's not really an organization. It's just a bunch of people that like to ride. And they put together a memorial on maybe it was a Wednesday night. We started at the monument in the Panhandle. We rode out to 30th Avenue. There was a ghost bike installed there for Heather Miller. There was a laying of flowers. There was a moment of silence. And then we rode back through the park down to Howard and 7th to view the brand new ghost bike for Kate Slattery. There were probably at least 100 people there. People kind of came and went. There was a little press there. The community came together. The ghost bikes were in place.
Explain quickly what ghost bikes are, just so people know.
Somebody takes a bicycle. You try to pick a bicycle that's not good to ride, not fixable. You spray paint the whole thing white. Maybe you strip it a little, and then you lock it with a heavy chain at the location where somebody was killed on their bicycle. People frequently adorn these memorials with flowers and candles and other mementos, stuffed animals, such things as that. The DPW generally takes them down here in San Francisco. I am trying to put a stop to that, and I am appealing to people who care about this to help me with my project.
So not to digress, but why do you think it's important to have reminders of those deaths?
First of all, a lot of people stop and look at these, cyclists and non-cyclists, car drivers and pedestrians. It serves as a reminder that whenever some kind of an accident or crash of some sort happens, the human cost is frequently fatal. It's not just a little crash. People's lives are changed and affected. And I think it really helps people to think about what they're doing when they're driving around. You know, if I'm going to be 5 minutes late, is that worth killing somebody, for instance? And it's also, I think it's also very good just for the morale of cyclists that we feel like we're not garbage. We're human beings. We just happen to be on our bikes. And when one of us gets killed, it's noted and remembered by the community.
Yeah, I think because this was an unprecedented number of fatal collisions that occurred in our city, and with the advent of time, quick social media, quick internet contact, our standard phone trees happened very quickly. And I think that there's something there in kind of the vicarious trauma of the community in seeing reports on Twitter about collision happened, cyclist involved, getting little tidbits of information about the cyclist, finding out how old they are, thinking in your network of friends that you know or fellow riders, who could that be? And who has their contact information and who can find this person to make sure that it wasn't one of us. But every single time it is one of us. And I think that there is something to be said about having these community-led therapeutic processing rides, like this memorial ride that Bike Party put on. I think they're very important for the healing, for the community to be able to get together to recognize these two humans who were humans and riding their bikes and were murdered by hit and run drivers. And I think that it's really important for us to make space for that in order for us to be able to process our grief, process our pain and our anger, so we can pivot and turn it into action.
Yeah, this in particular, I think 2 deaths on one night was like a 1-2 punch for the community. People were almost breathless from Because I think there's now, given the statistics, this sense of impending doom and who's next. And we don't want to think about it, but
Right.
it's there. So tell me, what, in the big picture of Vision Zero, we're dealing with a climate that every scientist says is at the tipping point. Tell me where Vision Zero and cycling and walking fit in. And what do you see as the bigger context for what you do as cyclists?
For me, at least, I think that it's, as a female-bodied human riding our bikes every single day, we are leading by example, by taking up space in the bike lane, taking up space on the road. It's by representation and modeling something that can happen. And ideally, with Vision Zero, it's helping shift the culture away from cars, away from gas, to something that can be ideally not even a second thought is given to hopping on your bike and going to the grocery store, hopping on your bike and going to yoga, instead of taking a car and taking up space in traffic and polluting our finite amount of resources in our planet. And I think that Vision Zero will help the culture shift as we wait for infrastructure. Because we know that people will not bike unless they have access to rideable machines. People will not bike if they have dangerous streets. So those are two hand-in-hand things that need to happen.
The number one thing that I hear from people who are interested in cycling and don't is that it's too dangerous to do. That is the number one reason. You would think it might be infirmity or health or, carting their children around or affordability, right? But it's really about safety. That is the number one reason that I hear. I'm a long-time cyclist. I've been riding my bicycle virtually every day since the 70s. That's just the thing that I love to do. So, and I love it when I'm out somewhere and the air is fresh, when it's clean. I can tell different parts of town that have really bad air because there's so many cars there. So, I would love to see more of the city converted to being more bicycle friendly. South of Market is just awful to cycle, and not just because of the traffic, but because of the air. We really are contributing something by not driving our cars down there. Right. We're taking away from traffic, which is dangerous, but it's also a great polluter. So, of course, anytime we can get people to walk and ride their bikes, or even take public transit, which is still a fairly polluting way of transportation, anytime we can get people to choose that instead of their cars, we are doing a good thing for the earth.
I'm tempted to say in the face of no political will from leadership, but let's just ask first what you think of what the leadership has been in San Francisco compared to other cities and other countries. And what, if you could wave a magic wand and say, here's the first thing we need to do to achieve Vision Zero, that is 0 deaths and serious injuries by 2024, what is the first thing that you each would address? Or what would you tell the city, this is what we must do first?
Well, we definitely have to invest in cycling infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure. And I really think education is undervalued in this whole equation. I think we need a revolution of thought in this country around all issues, but education is always the key to everything. I'm constantly being questioned by my friends who do not ride bikes about why I do it and how I do it and what are all the pitfalls and this and that. They really don't know. And I was actually flipping through my bicycle plan this morning for San Francisco, which was written in 2009, and it was on hold for a couple of years. There's a lot in there about educating cyclists. There's not much in there about educating drivers. It's touched upon, but not nearly enough. We need full education for all professional drivers, not just operators of big vehicles, although that is also extremely important. We have many people in this town who've been killed by muni buses. The city is responsible for that. they have no excuse for not educating their own bus drivers about how to not hit pedestrians and how to not hit cyclists. So I think education is the most overlooked part of the whole equation. I know Vision Zero and the city bike plan are both fairly comprehensive. They cover a lot of stuff. But that's the one thing that really needs to be focused on more.
And what would you be your first recommendation for the city?
I truly believe it would be infrastructure. Build it and they will come. And that would dramatically decrease. I think it's infrastructure in it being world-class bike lanes and not merely paint on the street, which
Tell
we
us
know.
what that means. What does world-class bike lanes mean?
So there are different levels of bike lanes. There's the most basic, which is merely just paint on the street, which we see and we know from concrete examples does nothing. And folks have to make those safe if that's the only option that they have. So for example, recently in my district in D6 in the Tenderloin, there's been a group of people, the SFMTRa, who've been purchasing their own traffic cones. Because we know in the limited education that drivers do get, they obey the cone. So that's a golden rule, obey the cone. And this group of radical road users have been putting these cones up as a way to have a separated and protected bike lane.
It was a new, just minted, right? Bike lane, totally inadequate.
Absolutely.
And tell us what happened a little bit around that.
There were enough on one hand, two hands, of vulnerable road user and car and vehicle conflict. And it was just a matter of time before it ended in serious injury or death.
I think we may see some footage of cars speeding down the bike lane.
It's
Yeah.
it's horrific.
Yeah.
So I think it's a complicated. Many cities and areas that are struggling with this right now as our cities grow denser and more populated, and people are being forced to move out of San Francisco and having to but still work here and commuting in. So I think it's a very complicated issue, but I think for me the answer to the magic question would be infrastructure, and not just pedestrian bulb outs or not pedestrian or better pedestrian infrastructure, better bike infrastructure, but I'm talking about also better public transit so that we can be multimodal and the choice of choosing not to commute into San Francisco by vehicle is truly an affordable, realistic, and accessible, frequent, non-breaking down option.
Right.
So that it's not, it's the moment, it's not a second thought. The moment it's an unconscious decision that we as a culture have chosen to be slower, more mindful, and more connected to the world around us.
Right. And there's that issue of the last mile.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't have to be that you're cycling 60 miles into work, right?
Correct.
If we got what you say, which is really good transit network, efficient, whatever, which is now, of course, in San Francisco, the Bay Area, underfunded a lot, then we would only have, then you could bring your bike on and get on your bike and do the last mile on your bike. So
and it's slowly getting there. Caltrans has done a lot of really good work in improving their bike Caltrain interface. Same with BART, they've done a lot. And the Bay Area we have public transit. It could be better.
Yeah.
Considering
it could be more coordinated.
It could be better.
You know,
could be a lot better for the world-class city that we think that we're trying to frame ourselves as, that we're trying to present ourselves as to the world, as this leading city in tech industry. Let's heal ourselves first.
I think
right?
the mayor's catchphrase is innovation capital of the world.
Right.
Right? We want to see that on the ground, literally.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you say infrastructure and you say education are big pieces of that. What can citizens do? We've talked about a couple of things that are happening now, and we'll say the handle on Twitter for SFMTRa is exactly that, at SFMTRa. They invite people to give the locations of where they'd like to see some of their infrastructure going. They're very responsive.
Probably a bit
unlike
more
our bureaucracy.
bit more responsive than 311.
Exactly. I think we've documented that.
Yes,
But
yes.
what would you tell citizens who really want to help get involved with Vision Zero? Let's say if you're a driver, or if you're a cyclist, or if you only walk, or if you take care of children or take care of older people. Tell us what citizens can do to help move forward Vision Zero.
Well, there are a number of avenues that anybody can plug into. I know the MTA does sponsor public meetings. They do call for opinions. You can also volunteer your opinions. There are ways you can send them messages about things that are interesting, useful to you. You can do what Mary Kay and I have done, which is to accept the appointment to a city body where we get to advise our supervisors on all things bicycle. There's just so much to do. Most of our neighborhoods do have such things as transit meetings monthly. I know that the MTA is reaching out to neighborhoods where major transit improvements are planned. For instance, Masonic, Geary, Mission. If you feel strongly about having good transit on Mission, I would highly encourage you to tell the MTA that you are in favor of improved transit on Mission, because those who are against it have been very vocal. Same is true for the red bus zone that is being planned for Geary. In fact, there's quite a lot on social media on this. Geary has its own webpage called Go Geary. I would highly recommend anyone who wants to be involved in that to connect with them. I'm pretty sure there's a planning association in the neighborhood that's seeking information by way of a survey about public transit, and I absolutely think that public transit has to be part of the solution. You cannot, there's no way we can make Geary Boulevard bicycle friendly, but we could make Geary very transit friendly, and we have so much nearby streets where bicycling infrastructure could be improved. And in fact, I hope everybody who's interested in bicycling infrastructure will come to the next advisory committee meeting at City Hall and tell us about it. Throw your weight behind us. Give us something to hang our hats on when we tell the city what we want to see done.
I think that it starts at home. It starts just like any political campaign when you talk to family members who might be a little different leaning politically than you. When we, what I would recommend for anyone who is a biker or committed and concerned about this particular topic is to go find someone in your community who doesn't do any of these things, walk, take public transit, bike, and invite them out for a walk, invite them out for a ride, invite them out on a muni ride with no goal, no agenda, other than, sharing this beautiful world, but to be a shepherd for someone and to be a role model and to show them how you do it. And I think that that's the first step. The other is, getting connected with any local advocacy group, Walk SF, the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition, Bike East Bay, the Marin Bicycle Coalition, Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition. There's a bunch of different in the Bay Area that I think are very powerful and have a lot of really great resources online for bike riders, for drivers, for parents of any of the following. I think
we're quite rich in that.
Yeah.
And obviously we have kick-ass advocates here who are wonderful people to be around. So when you get involved in that, you actually are in a community that cares deeply about things. I would say that, right?
We do.
Thank you very much for joining us today and watching. I hope you'll come back soon. And in the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook at Let's Get Political SF.